So I'm here with Holly Montgomery. She's a bass player out of DC. Holly, thanks for being here today.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Kind of excited. Um, so I know we did the written version or the written portion of your interview. So we're gonna move on to the video. So thanks for making the time for that.
Mhm.
Um, so I was reading through your written interview, and you're active as a musician. It seems on both coasts. You're signed with a band in LA,
Mhm.
and you're also active in the DC scene, very active.
Yeah.
Uh, so props to you for that. How did you achieve a bicoastal career, and how do you balance that?
Well, like most things that are cool, it happened by accident. You know, all of the things that you spend a great deal of time doing, seem to have a harder time launching than things that fall into your lap. So, I played in a band in the '90s when I still lived in LA called the Mustangs, and um, it's a modern country band, and I didn't had never really played country. It wasn't a thing that I'd done a lot of, but I did it because I liked the women in the band, at the time, and so I did it. And basically, I was going to LA a few years ago for something completely unrelated, and got in touch with Sherry, the guitarist for the Mustangs, and said, "Hey, I'm going to be in town," and she's like, "Great, let's do a Mustangs reunion." I'm like, "Oh, well, I had a little stuff going on that week," which of course I ended up spending the whole week with the Mustangs. And so we did a recording and a video and that trip, and Sherry worked really hard, and the band got signed to Blue Long Records, and so then,
Nice.
bang, just like that, there it was.
Okay.
And I've been bragging for years, like in my gigs, ha ha, I checked out of the Hotel California. And guess what?
Yeah, you can never leave.
You never leave. I'm all right with that.
That's not a bad thing. It's kind of cool to have a bicoastal career.
Well, pre-COVID, we had a tour booked and an album release in March 2020. So it was, very sad because we worked really hard, and like the logistics of getting the band together, and we added new members to the band. We changed the band name. We recorded the album at legendary Henson Studios with Mark Howard, and it was such a great everything. We were finally getting all of that together, and then COVID hit. You
So
know,
what's going to happen now that the world's opening back up? Are you guys going to try to?
we're trying to. We've been lately really talking a lot about, okay, so what can we salvage, and what do we need to do that's just new, to because um, it's just the way it is in the industry. Now the album is a year old. So it's a little bit different marketing and promoting that than it is when the album is brand new. So we're trying to figure it out, and hopefully we will. We put a lot of energy and heart into that.
Yeah. Well, hopefully we'll see something that you can somehow spin or recreate it somehow.
Yeah, exactly.
Good luck.
So yeah.
So I scanned down your Facebook page, and I'm kind of curious. How many instruments do you play?
Oh, confidently or just no? Well, it's weird because I came from a musical family, and my father was a piano player, and my mother was a guitar player, and so that was just always kind of in my consciousness, and I remember as a little kid climbing on the piano bench and kind of playing. Um, and same with guitar. I was never really all that great at either of them, but I'm competent enough, and it really wasn't until I started playing bass. The first time I picked up a bass, I went, "Oh, this is the thing I want to do." I never felt that way about anything else that I did. I played trombone in high school band and in college, you know. So
Cool.
I did a lot of different things before I settled on bass. So
Nice. Wow. Okay.
I play guitar in a lot of gigs, but um, you know, strictly the rhythm stuff and everything. You know.
Yeah, I want to ask about that because it seems like you've got, I've seen you play. You're a more than competent bass player. You're a fabulous bass player. But then you seem to have this singer-songwriter uh, identity also going on. So does that, especially when we're living in a day and age where branding is getting pushed so much. Does that affect? Do you find that's a plus, a minus? Does it affect things at all?
Yeah, it it's the same as it ever was. There's not a lot of room for variety in what you do. I've always been a songwriter. I when I was, in the '90s when I lived in LA, I wanted to be the next female Soundgarden, and my band was great. We were playing the Strip and doing all of that stuff, and I love that band. I still listen to those recordings and go, damn it, I love that stuff. I still love it. But to me, it's always centered around the song, everything. So sometimes it's a little bit weird for me because I go out and I'll do guitar gigs just to keep from having to get a day job. And so I'll do guitar gigs, and but if I do too many of them, it starts to mess with me a little bit because I'm heart and soul a rocker chick, and I just it makes me too. It's not like they say in Monty Python. It's not my idiom. So I write songs that way, but I invariably give them off to a far better guitar player than me, so that the songs can be like what I'm hearing in my head. But when I sit down to play them, it sounds a little bit. I joke about myself and say everything I play on guitar sounds like Hank Williams. It doesn't matter what I'm playing, if it's Soundgarden or if it's Eric Clapton, it just sounds like Hank Williams when I try to do it. So I get somebody else.
Hey man, that's still not a bad thing in some circles. That's not a bad comparison at all. I partly asked that question a little bit out of selfishness because I play more than one instrument too.
Yeah.
So I was kind of curious what your experience was with it. And
Yeah.
really,
well, I got to admit that sometimes it makes me like go, like if I have a bunch of a certain kind of gigs in a row, I feel I start to get less or more hesitant about promoting them, as I should. And it's not that I don't enjoy the gig or I'm not thankful for it, but it's like it's hard. Yeah, it is.
yeah.
It's a very, we're definitely in a branding age, no doubt about it. So it's hard, but really, I've never had, in my mind, I've never had a problem with that because all I'm looking to do is have an instrument in my hand and improve myself as a musician and learn things. I don't have a problem with a wide variety of styles or anything like that. So I just want to learn and become better as a musician and try to limit my branding moments for the stuff that I really want to be seen as doing as a songwriter more than anything else.
Gotcha. Very cool. Okay. So I've asked this. I'm going to be asking this of every female because I think it's a good one. Dangerous question for you. What is something that you are not getting credit for that you absolutely should be getting credit for?
Huh. That's a good question.
You can say pass. It's okay.
That's all right. Fabulous hairstyles? No. I should get credit for that, right? It's so hard because I view the female thing as such a double-edged sword. It bothers me just as badly when I see people go, man, did you see her do that? She was so great. And I'm like, well, she was good. And then because you want to be like sister power and supporting everybody, but it's really hard to be a female musician in certain genres. I don't see it happening so much like in jazz or classical, but more in the pop and rock and that kind of genre. It's hard to just be the player in the band. Like I know that some people don't want female musicians in their band because then you become the band with the female musician. And it's sad, but it's true, that there is an element of truth to that because for some reason it's still kind of a thing, which is very bizarre to me. When I was young and starting out, I would have thought for sure that all that would be over by now and would be 50-50, but it's like, it's not even 90-10, So anyway, what am I not getting credit for? I mean, I view myself as being a super solid player. Nobody ever has to wonder if I'm going to show up to the gig unprepared. I never show up to gigs unprepared. I'm I'm I play like a freight train. I'm right there and I'm super solid. And sometimes, you know, sometimes it would be nice to be able to have my playing looked at aside from all of the other things, but that's just not the way the world works, especially as a female. It's just not the way it works.
Yeah, that
You
makes
can't,
sense.
you can't show up to the gig with the same with a like so many guys. I'll go to gigs with guys. They roll out of bed in a t-shirt, and that's what they wear to the gig. You know, girls can't. You can't do that really as a female. I mean, I guess you could, but I don't know.
No, I feel you on that. I feel you. It's there's more than slightly different standard there.
Mhm.
So, very cool, but absolutely on the fabulous hair. I agree.
Jerk.
So previously in these interviews, I've been asking about how pandemic was treating musicians, how it was affecting them. In this case, I guess I have to start asking how are things as the world's now reopening, gigs, projects,
Oh, God, yeah.
any updates since the written portion of the interview that you want to talk about?
Yeah, I got to tell you, I was hitting it so hard for years. Um, I mean, you know, I play hundreds of shows every year, and 2019 was like the busiest year yet. And I was going to LA almost every month. So it was a really busy year. So when the pandemic hit, after the first initial like week or two of just like being so upset that all these things with the Mustangs were canceled. Um, After that got over, and it was like, wow, I get to relax and unwind, and in that time, my band here that I've been playing with for a long time, my number one project, we finished recording our album, which we've been struggling to find time to do, and we recorded a really like magnum opus album for me as a songwriter this last year that we're going to be releasing this year.
Yeah, just let it go. You can keep
And
talking.
yeah, and so all of that's great. So right now I'm in the thick of getting release information about that out, which I'll have exciting news about that coming up, but I can't share it yet.
Nice.
And so we have I was able to do that. So all of that's great. So I have that in the works. We're gonna press it to vinyl. We have all kinds of fun stuff with that. Um, but now getting back into it, coming out of COVID, I'm finding myself going, wow, do I want to play 300 gigs this year? Maybe I should do 200 gigs and make them count more. Okay, oh, the nasty finances. It's like, oh gosh, other than the financial devastation, the pandemic was great. I got a lot done. For the first 6 months of the pandemic, I was practicing hours every day. It was like really hitting all this technique stuff, all the stuff I told myself I never had time to do. So now getting back into it, I guess I'm just kind of doing a reevaluation of, okay, what do I really want to do with my career at this point? I'm gonna promote the crap out of this album that we released. It's with my bandmates Buddy Spear and Andy Hamburger, two local legends around here, and we all played our hearts out for the album, and I think it's worthy of a listen. And so I'm going to really put a lot of time in and energy into that for the next foreseeable future.
Nice. I've been really looking forward to seeing updates about that and when you guys are playing. So.
Which I would never have had time to do and get my head wrapped around had the pandemic not happened. So, yeah.
Fair enough. Mm-hmm. So, this is a somewhat frivolous question, but the way you wrote something in your written interview almost prompted this. I was going to just throw a line out and see if I got a bite. Okay. You said you won 4 lessons with rocco. I have a student whose father, let's just do the 6 degrees separation thing here. I'm not going to name names, but I'm kind of asking it for that person. So, do you have any rocco lesson stories that you want to or can share on the call?
I'm not sure. Like, I want to say the rocco lesson stuff. I don't know what. I feel like if I don't, people will think it has something to do with sex, and it doesn't have to do with sex. Yeah. It has to do with. I mean, it really was like that. There was this couple of months where I won these lessons from the bass center in LA. And this is like not long after I moved to LA, you know. So I like going with my little sundress and my bass, and I sit down, and he's like, you know, play me something, play it, you know. And I start to play, and his response was basically like, man. I can't really tell you what he said next. So hold on, let me think about that for a second.
I can imagine that.
Basically, my assignment for the first week was to go home and have sex and come back after that. That's what he told me. You need to have more sex. Come back next week. That was basically what he told me to do. And then at the time, I was playing in a band with Suzanne Morissette, which now I'm playing again with her in the Mustangs. We recruited her in the Mustangs, and so at that time, there's something about the way that I played that bugged them so badly, which is funny, that he started coming to our gigs. Okay, so let me tell you, that was pressure, right? So, you know, there were more than one time where I would be like playing the gig, you know, and Rocco's sitting there looking at me going, shaking his head, and like a couple of times he would come up and go, fucking play this, and like was singing bass lines in my ear, like when I'm trying to play what he's singing in my ear. But I mean, Suzanne and I were so starstruck by that, you know. It was I would just see him out there going, oh man, you know, shaking his head, you know.
How old are you? Do you mind me asking? What old is this going on?
You know better than to ask that question. I was in my early 20s, I think.
Okay. I just wanted for, you know, like to get in your mindset being on stage and this is going on and Rocco's like,
yeah, and some stinking bar gig, you know, I'm at a bar gig and going, okay, I guess this is really happening here, you know. And then Suzanne and I started, they were playing, I can't remember if it was a Monday or Tuesday night in the Valley with some other Tower of Power people. And we started going to that, and they would let us sit in, and I was like, man, that was the best education I ever got. You know, we would go there, and that's where we met Herman Matthews at that gig, and Herman, you know, it's like, it just, for both of us, it was a really huge deal, you know, just to get, you know, the thing that's made me a better player my whole life is playing with people that were better than me, and I still do that every day, you know, and so that was a huge deal. So yeah, I mean, we have lots of Rocco stories in that, but I think that's about all that I'll tell there.
Thank you. I realized that could have been dicey ground. And
probably more than any of you, I've been a massive disappointment to Rocco Prestia. Just let you know. And I'm all right with that too. I'm all right.
That was great. Thank you. Seriously, thanks for sharing that.
Yeah.
So, it was like a possibly dicey ground to tread onto.
I know. No, he was perfectly great with me. But you know, at the same time that was going on, I had started working for Mike Tobias.
Oh.
So this was like I had this like multiple bass god thing happening in my life for like a good, you know, I worked for Mike for more than 3 years when he was in Hollywood, and then after Gibson bought the company there for a little bit. So I had, you know, lots of stories there too. I met a lot of people in his shop, you know.
Nice.
But anyway, yeah, I've been around a lot of bass gods that kicked my ass for sure.
Well, do you mind me asking what was your job with working with Mike? Did you work on basses? Were you?
No, I did paperwork. You know, I wish that I could say I had been qualified to do any hands-on work, but yeah, man, that's very specific and skilled labor for what he did, you know. And you know, I was in my 20s in LA trying to become a rock star, so I didn't have the mindset to be in that anyway. So, you know, basically, if you ordered a custom-made pre-Gibson Tobias in the early 90s, then you probably talked to me at some point.
Dang. Yeah, check it out. That's awesome. All right, so typical day in the life of Hollywood.
You know, I basically get up every day and go, okay, what are my making sure that I haven't forgotten what that, you know, okay, what's the gig today? Is my car packed for that? or what's the gig this weekend? Do I have a band? Is the band is on board? You know, or, you know, I do a lot of gigs as a side person on bass, which I love those gigs because I can just show up and play, you know. So do I have music to learn for that? So basically every day I'm getting up and doing calendaring. Like the calendar is a big deal because, you know, if I play in 20 to 30 projects in a year, I have to not screw up, you know. And sometimes I do, and it's awful. It's this awful feeling, but whatever we have to do to not have a day job. So, yeah. So I look at the calendar, make sure that my gigs for the foreseeable future are staffed. Make sure that I paid people for the gigs that I've done, and make sure that I have music learned for things. And then, you know, I have to do networking, which is hard for me because I'm a little bit introverted when it comes to that stuff, but I got to make myself do it, you know, and reach out to people and look for new opportunities and hopefully get a few minutes to practice and exercise and keep my body in shape. And, you know, it's a lot of details. I take care of a lot of details every day. You know, like I have a long list of things to do today. Yeah, I do.
Gotcha.
Like,
what's that?
I said a long list of things like that to do, but, you know, I just keep plugging and hopefully don't forget things. You know, I guess it sounds pretty mundane. You know, that's why a lot of times people will say, well, at least you're doing what you love. And it's like, well, sometimes.
Part of the reason I ask this question is so that people who maybe don't understand that get a little bit of light on that.
Yeah.
I pretty much live and die by a list too.
Yeah. It's like lists and lists and lists and calendaring, updating the website, redoing the bio, uploading the pictures. I mean, I can't tell you, like so many times I'll look at something and go, wow, I haven't updated that since fill in the blank, you know, like, and just things that happen all the time for that, you know, and like trying to keep to a social media posting schedule because that's everything, you know, it is. I sometimes it's like, I wish I could log off Facebook for a month, but I can't do it and survive. You know, like I get a lot of work that way from people seeing me on social media and asking me, do you record bass tracks at home? Can you do this for me at home? You know, I mean, a guy just did that this week where I got an album project for vocals where I'm going to be able to record vocals at home and send to him because he saw me on social media. So it's a necessary evil of the age, you know.
Yeah, and that doesn't necessarily make it fun to do either.
It's not always fun. It's not always awful either. It's like, I just wish I could get up every day and practice and run a few miles and do all of that stuff, you know, and have somebody else worry about getting my gear to the gig and all that stuff that, you know.
You look great, by the way. So I know you, just saying props on. You look really great.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
I'm going down swinging.
What's the best advice you've ever been given?
As a musician?
You could do it as a musician or just as a human being.
Oh.
Maybe best is just most helpful for you.
Well, you know, you never take the best advice you're given, unfortunately. That's the advice you tend to ignore, you know. The best advice I was ever given, you know, it took me a while when I moved to LA to not give in to despair when I was rejected for things. And I think that would have to be the best advice I was ever given is, you know, don't give in to despair until you've gotten 100 rejections for the thing you're trying to do. Then maybe you'll look at it and go, but otherwise you're not taking into consideration other people's crap. You know, like if I have to contact somewhere 20 times about details for a gig that I'm on and they don't respond to me, to not take it personally and despair. And I still have a problem with that. You know, I still, Uh,
Sorry, my camera it's got a camera gremlin today, so just
that's okay. It's like,
yeah, just
that's
keep
like,
rolling. I'll just put a
I
little
still
oil
have
over
issues.
my face or something when that happens.
You know, one story that I'll keep telling forever because I think sometimes people think that these things aren't true. But, you know, not long after I moved to LA, I went on this audition and I don't even want to say what it was for. Let me just say that it was for this well-known national rah rah America kind of rah rah United States kind of act. Okay. So I walked on stage once again with my little sundress with my bass. And before I could even play anything, the guy goes, too fat, next.
Oh,
And that was like, you know, I mean, I weighed like 135, you know, it's not awful. It's not,
no.
but I, I'm still, I'm still mad at myself to this day because it had such an effect on me that I think for a year I stayed in my apartment. I was like so traumatized by that, like of getting on stage and like there's people there and it's like, oh, okay, I guess I'll walk off stage now, you know, and so yeah, it took me a little while to get over that. You know, I'm so over that now. But you know, when you're 21 or 22 and you don't know anybody in town, it was not easy to listen to and not despair. So yes, that's
Yeah,
a is to take rejection better. That would have been the best um, advice I ever got. Is rejection isn't personal.
yeah. Especially the point you brought out. You don't know where that rejection's actually coming from. Like
Yeah.
what their bag of
Mm-hmm.
horseshit is that's motivating it.
Yep.
Because I can think of 100 reasons why you could have said that had nothing to do with you.
Yeah.
So, damn, good story. Sorry you went through that, but good story.
Yeah.
Starting your career over from day one, what would you do differently, if anything?
If I could, I'll tell you, that one's so easy for me to answer. If I could start it over right now, I would have, and this is, God, this is so typical, but I would have taken off to LA right after high school
Hmm.
and gone and gotten into the thick of things. And I wouldn't have let people that told me I was too fat, like keep me at home. You know, I wouldn't have done it. I
I
could,
was wondering if you could have worked that in.
uh, I would have done it because, you know, like it, you know, I have the drive, I have the ambition, and I have the, I don't know what the word is.
That looks like gumption if you
That
were
that I've never been scared 1 second on a stage. I don't care about if I get on stage and crash and burn. It's not gonna. It's part of the thing. You have to crash and burn sometimes. You know. I wish that I could, if I could do it, that's what I would do. I would go and and I would be far less nice about sticking my music in front of people and going, listen to this, listen to what I did, listen, you know, because you know I look at it like, man, uh, I remember there was a band that I used to play with that we used to co-bill a lot when I lived in LA, and one of the guys in the band, this is so inspiring to me. You'll probably think I'm nuts. But,
no, good.
you know, he got tired of being ignored and went into Capitol Records and smashed up the desk and broke a guitar and threw a temper tantrum and he got a record deal.
Damn.
Right. So I don't think that would have worked for me. It's not my idiom. But that that thing, that thing of going, okay, you're gonna listen, like it or not. You can throw me in jail, but you're gonna listen. That's it.
I'm going to take that one to heart. There you go. What would you be doing right now if it wasn't for your music career? Speaking of avoiding that day job, if you had to pick the day job.
If I had to, well, I am such a massive, massive history nerd, and I go on little spells of okay. I think for the next few months, I'm going to learn everything I can learn about fill in the blank, Tudor history or, World War I or whatever. I love that. I mean, I don't know if I would fit into academia. I don't know if I'm a conformist enough for that, but I sure love it, and I love learning it, and I love studying it, and I love talking to people about it. And I go on little backpack trips almost every year to places that I've read about my whole life, just to see it in person and learn about it. So I don't know. I think I would probably be some kind of something. I would love it if I had, maybe I could start my own company for history tours or something. I don't know. That's kind of like the only other thing I ever thought about.
That's pretty good.
I'm a nerd.
Hey, no, that's all right. So I think most of us musicians, I'm not saying all of us, but there's a good quantity of us who are introverts and somewhat nerdy. It's just some of us hide it better than others. So, what is the thing you are most proud of to date?
I mean, as a musician?
Yeah, ideally, but it doesn't have to be that. I mean, some of the tangents are pretty interesting.
I think if I could say the thing that I'm most proud of is that when I left LA, I'd had a manager and like this record deal, and basically got told that at 30 I was too old, and if I hadn't broken at 30, then I was never going to make it, and as a female, frankly, and I was like, okay, all right. So I don't. What that taught me is that, okay, I guess I'm not going to fit in here anymore, and I moved to the East Coast. And so since I've been on the East Coast, I just finished my third album here on the East Coast. I made two when I still lived in LA. So I guess I'm just most proud of never giving in to the same old. I've never given into it. I don't want to ever sing or play a song on a gig that I don't like. And sometimes people don't like that. But I have to be authentic to myself, So if I'm proudest of anything, I will say that without the help of any record label or music industry person of any sort, I've made my 5 albums, and I make a living playing music that I don't hate. And excuse me, I make a living playing music that I don't hate.
And you're award winning too, from things I've seen in your bio. So, it's not like you're no slouch at it either. So, all right. So, during pandemic, we were growing our skill sets, and you mentioned working on technique and having time to address things you never had time to do before. We're coming into the new year. What are you most curious to maybe add to your skill set this year or work on this year?
Oh gosh. Whew. I think about things like that, and then I get overwhelmed, because anybody who's been doing this long enough, the longer you do it, the more you realize that you don't know anything. It's like there's so much more to learn. I go on YouTube and I watch these Leland Sklar videos, and I'm like, why was I ever born? You think about these things and go, the guy he's so cool, and he's just sitting there like hanging out and playing the stuff and going, oh my God. I think, I don't know. I don't even know where to start. There's so many things that I want to learn. There's a lot, like I've been feeling lately like I haven't done this in a long time, to just like sit down with classic bass albums, like, all right, like I do with history, like this month I'm going to be Verdine White, and I just sit down and like put on the records and just play my way through every single Earth, Wind, and Fire record I can get. So, I mean, I haven't started doing that yet. I kind of started to do it in a COVID with Jethro Tull, because that stuff is not normal. So, I've done a bunch of transcriptions of Jethro Tull stuff, bass transcriptions, you know. So I like to sit down and play through those, but I feel like I need to do more of that in a lot of different kind of styles, you know, just song stuff. Because I consider myself to be a bass player for the song.
Nice.
I might not be the flashiest player on your gig, but I'm never going to step all over the vocalist.
Yeah, yeah.
Never. Well, most of the time I am the vocalist. So, but you know, but I'm never going to do that. So you know, you go to the greats and listen what they did. You know, and so that's what I think I'm going to do.
Nice, nice. All right. Last question. What's one thing, or sorry, what's something you've done only one time in your career that you couldn't wait to do a second time if you were given the opportunity?
This is a very selfish one, I guess.
That's the whole point.
Well, about 10 years ago, I got to do this project with Ainsley Dunbar, and oh my God, you know, that guy. There's some rock and roll stories there, you know. Woo! What a great guy. I got to tell you honestly, we just had a blast doing this thing, and I just wish that I were, you know, that I were of the I wish I could be on his radar and do another project with Ainsley Dunbar. I just love the way he played. I was so starstruck by him. I'm not often starstruck. I was very starstruck by Ainsley because I grew up as a huge Zappa fanatic, you know, so he was one of the mothers of invention. And I was just like, wow, I can't believe that this landed in my lap. So, yeah, I would do some more recording with Ainsley Dunbar.
Nice. Nice. Thanks. Holly, thanks for doing this. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, and thanks for listening to my stories. I mean, I know it's a little different because I'm a singing bass player, you know, so everything all the whole way that I play is really influenced by that, you know, and sometimes I feel like that's not what people are looking for, and then other times I feel like it is, and they don't know it yet.
Nice, nice. Well, I mean, we've got, you know, the idea here is to elevate the stories of our lady bass players. We are all gems. There's more of us now, but in the same way, when I was younger, I had hopes that things would be different by now too. So, you know, everybody in the world can give you more than a handful of items of Jocko lore or Stanley lore, and that's good. I'm not saying that's not an important part, but beyond Carol Kay and maybe Susie Quattro, you know, they can't really sometimes say a whole lot about our lady bass players. So thanks for letting me be a part of helping tell your story and sharing your story with us. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Take care.
All right. See you later.